Hello and good evening. I hope this finds everyone well. Today I'm going to answer questions from RaptureReady. She wanted some more information about my mother. Well, I don't really know a whole lot about my mother, but I can tell you what I do know. um, my mother, growing up, was abused by her mother, who was abused by her mother, and her mother. It's a long line of generational mother to daughter abuse. Um, my mom was a type 1 diabetic in a time when they didn't really understand childhood diabetes and whatnot. I don't really know much about that struggle with her. I know that she absolutely loved horses, and she actually participated in horse shows. She was a horse, I think they're called horse jumper. I don't know. She showed horses, she rode horses, she they did the obstacle courses where they do the jumps and the tournament things like with horses, and she was very, very good. She had an entire room in my grandmother's basement that was full of trophies and ribbons and certificates and just all kinds of things that my mom had won for all of the years that she did her horse stuff. I don't really know what it's called. I'm sorry. Equestrian sports. I don't know. Um, she just really loved horses. Uh, let's see. I don't know if it was a love that she had from the very start or if my grandmother forced her into it, because my grandmother also loved horses and she loved to ride horses. I don't think she showed horses, or maybe she showed them, but she didn't participate in the events of jumping the horses and uh, racing the horses and whatnot. No, she wasn't a horse. Like, she didn't run around in the circle like with the horse. She wasn't a jockey. She was I don't know what it's called. I'm very sorry. Anyway, it's not really the point of the topic. But my grandmother, like I said, I don't know if she forced the horse love onto my mother or if my mother just genuinely grew up loving horses and then uh made a good point of her life all about horses. And she went to a radiology school, which is where she met my father, who was also in radiology school. Um, and she still, even through the first few years of marriage, she still did the horse stuff until she ended up getting pregnant with me. I think she continued while pregnant until she couldn't anymore, but I don't really know. I think I've seen some pictures of her with a pregnant belly on the horses and whatnot, but again, I can't remember for sure. Um, so anyway, I know that my mother's brother, my uncle, is a hardcore alcoholic, as was my mother, as was their father, my grandpa. He was, I believe he was a very nice, very loving man. I don't have any bad memories of him at all. However, my mom said that my grandfather was sexually molesting her. Which there's so many questions in my head that go along with that, such as if she was truly being sexually molested by her father, then why, for one, now that she's dead, why was her last remaining wish to be buried by him? Why did she leave her daughter alone with him? I was very young when I spent a lot of time alone with my grandfather, and I don't remember him doing anything that ever made me uncomfortable. In fact, I have very good memories of him. I know that he always smelled of beer and butterscotch candy because he loved butterscotch candy and he loved his beer. Um, I have very good memories of my grandfather. I do not believe that he was sexually molesting her in any way. I feel that that was just one of her ways in which she received attention and sympathy, because she would bring that up when she wanted to get her way over specific things. Now, my grandmother, she was very strict. Um, she uh, she had a very big mean streak to her. She could be very kind and loving, and often was to me and my brother. But there was always a tension between her and my mom. They were always fighting, and anyway, so for what I know about my grandparents is totally different than what my mom's stories of them were. And the reason I'm talking about all of this is to lead into the story of my mother. So, but I wanted to give you some background of these people that she claims were so abusive to her. And again, I'm not wearing my wedding ring. I gotta remember to do that. See, when I'm working with my resin, I don't wear my ring because I don't want to get resin on it. But anyway, um, sidetrack. Sorry, I have ADHD. I get sidetracked. Anyway, not ADHD, ADD, whatever. um, Focus. Okay, so yeah, um, I don't know. I don't know why my uncle became an alcoholic. I'm assuming if my mother's stories were true about the abuse that she told me about, then perhaps he was also abused as well, and that's why he turned to drinking. I don't know. I don't. I believe my mother's reason for her alcoholism was because the abuse she suffered, as well as the divorce, and then the fact that she just absolutely despised herself. But she also was also very grandiose also because she was extremely narcissistic. So she really believed that she was of just like you could tell that she thought very highly of herself in many ways because she believed she was extremely smart. She believed that she was extremely beautiful. She believed that all men wanted her. She believed that uh, she deserved the best of everything under any circumstances. If she was unhappy, then nobody was allowed to be happy. Um, it just. So she was just very grandiose, very sure of herself, very, I'm so perfect and wonderful, and I'm the best mother in the world, and blah, 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 blah. But when you got her on one of those rare times where she wasn't being this narcissistic monster that she was, you could tell that she actually deep down hated herself. Like you could tell that she didn't have much self-esteem, but she sure played like she did. Um, Now let's get into more topic of my mom. So, okay. She told me on several occasions, besides the fact that, or besides telling me that my grandfather had sexually molested her, again, why would you leave your daughter with the person that sexually molested you? Why would you want to be buried next to him when you died? Why did you spend your life trying to please him and be very close to him? if he's doing this stuff to you, it seems like you just want to be far, far away. Because I know that the people that were molesting me, I wanted nothing to do with them. I wanted to be far, far away from them. I didn't want anything to do with them. And I sure as heck didn't want to be buried next to one of them. So, anyway, it was very confusing to hear this person talk so awful about my grandfather, who I believe to be a very kind, loving man. But she said such awful things about him. Now, her mother, yeah, the things that she said about my grandmother, I believe those. My grandmother was the type that when you got in trouble, you picked your own switch and she used it on you. And my brother and I had that a few times. That was really painful. But my mom said that she was always having to pick her own switches, and my grandmother, I guess when my mom was potty training, or I don't know, whenever she had an accident, whatever the reason was, whether it was potty training or maybe she was being molested. I don't know, because I guess she wet her bed a few times, although that probably could have been also related to the diabetes, because them not knowing how to manage it would affect your bladder and make it so that you would probably urinate while you were asleep, because I know it increases urination. But anyway, my grandmother would take my mother outside, specifically in the winter. She would strip her naked and make her sit in a deep snowbank, and she would make her sit there for a very long time. I don't know how long. Obviously, I wasn't there. These are just stories my mom told me. So it would be like one of these things where you're just lucky that I don't, do what my mother did and put you in a snowbank naked for, whatever the situation was like. But yeah, I guess apparently my grandmother, when my mother wet herself or had an accident, she would sit naked in a snowbank. I know that my grandmother was quite mentally abusive and was also verbally abusive. Although she wasn't, I wouldn't say she was abusive towards me, but she definitely said things that hurt, and she knew she knew how to hurt you, like, without actually touching you. Like, mentally, she could just really get under your skin. Physically, she knew exactly what to say to make you go, ow, that just really hurt, kind of thing. Yeah, so I do believe that my grandmother likely was very abusive towards my mom. My mom told me a few other things. I can't recall them at the moment. It was really hard to decipher what was real and what was not, because my mom liked to, she would, I believe she would tell things that honestly did happen, but then I also think that she would tell things that just came to her mind, like to get some sort of sympathy in the moment, because some stories would always stay the same and other stories would change. Like, they would change either a lot or they would change like a little, but not in a way of, oh, I just remembered this, so I'm adding it in. It was more of a, like, if you're saying the sky was purple. Okay, so the lie is, I went outside and the sky was purple and I was wearing a blue dress. Um, she would say something like, I went upstairs and I looked out the window and the sky was purple and I was wearing a yellow dress, kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? It's like same premise, but totally different. So like she couldn't keep her own abuse, correct, or, not correct. She couldn't keep her story straight, basically. So it was just really hard to know when she was lying and when she was telling the truth. Oh, in the sense that you just didn't know what was lies and what was the truth, except for when you knew that the lies, because you could tell that, well, I thought it was a purple sky, and now you're saying it was blue, or now you're saying that it was green, or like, so there were lies that you could definitely tell were lies, but then there were other things that was just like, that could be a lie, but I don't really know because it only changed like a little bit. And she has said it a couple other times. And another way to know she was lying was if she said something really horrendous, like what I just said, like she went outside and the sky was purple and she was wearing a whatever color dress I said. She would never mention it again. And if you brought that up, she would be like, "What? What are you talking about? I never said that." So those were also times when you knew that, okay, so that whole story was a lie because she doesn't even remember it. And then, so yeah. Um, let me see, what else do I know? Um, so yeah, I don't really believe about my grandfather. I do believe my grandmother was abusive. I don't know that I believe all the stories that my mother said about my grandmother, but I do believe quite a few of them. Because my grandmother definitely was absolutely capable of doing a lot of these things that my mother said happened, because my grandmother was not the nicest person, just really wasn't. Now, my great grandma, who obviously my grandma's mother, apparently hated everybody and was just mean to everybody, but she loved and adored me. Like I was like her favorite. Like she would take me for like the weekend and I would have so much fun at her house, and she'd do special things that I guess she never did for anybody else. Like those little tiny boxes of cereal that come cellophaned in like a line. Like at least they were when I was a kid. There's like, yeah, like six little tiny boxes of cereal like in the cellophane and like a line that was, I don't know, yay big. Anyway, it was a really big deal apparently that she specifically went to the store and bought that for me when I was staying with her, because apparently she didn't do that kind of stuff for other people. Like she didn't do special things for other people, and she never did anything special for her own daughter. So my grandmother was actually jealous of me, because her mother treated me so much better than she treated her. um, and there's a lot of stories about my great grandmother and how they don't really matter to this story. Just she actually favored me, which makes me feel really good. Actually, because she would be one of the only family members that really made me feel absolutely loved. Many of my other family members I've always felt extremely alienated from. And I believe that that has a huge part of because my mother set it up that way with her lies when I was younger, of me being mentally ill, to the point that I supposedly lied about everything and I made up horrific stories, and I had severe mental health issues, which of course scared my family, and they were all like, "Oh, we don't know what to do with like that kind of stuff." And of course none of it was true, but she didn't want to get caught with the abuse that she was doing to me, so she had to make me look like the crazy one so that she'd look like the good one. Anyway, so yeah, I really loved my great grandmother, and I'm sorry and sad to know that my great grandmother was quite mean to my grandmother, who then was mean to my mother, who was then horrific to me and my brother. Um, anyway, um, so that's pretty much all I really know about my mother's childhood. Um, She claims to have been sexually abused. I know she was abused by my grandmother. Grandmother. Um, I know she loved horses. I know that she was a type 1 diabetic. I know that she had a best friend, which I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if she'll ever watch this eventually. Um, and I know that they stayed friends until my mom's death, and I still have contact with her from time to time. She'll check on us, me and my brother, every so often. Um, but other than that, I don't know if my mother actually made other friends. I don't know if she had a lot of friends. I don't know if she was popular in school. I know my grandma said that my mom was in trouble a lot, but she didn't, I don't remember why or what she did, but that she was always in trouble or something. I don't know. Or maybe it was about my uncle. I honestly, I can't remember anymore. Um, Now I just, and as we're going through my story of the encounters with my mother, obviously you've discovered that she was narcissistic, alcoholic, extremely mean. She later developed a drug addiction as well. She was addicted to painkillers. So when she died, she was still an alcoholic, addicted to painkillers, and obviously still a narcissist because you don't just stop being a narcissist. um, I know that when she died, she was estranged from me and I believe my brother, um, because I had stopped talking to my mother probably 8 years before she died. I stopped having any contact with her. I couldn't deal with her abuse anymore. I couldn't. And there's more to it. It has to do, there's a lot to do. Actually, I'll cover it at some point. But the thing that gave me the strength to finally end my mother's abuse over me was actually my husband and the situation that I will talk about later, which gave me the strength to stand up against my mother and said, I'm not talking to you anymore. And it was very hard to do, and I was absolutely terrified. And my mother tried many things to try to get me to talk to her, even showing up at my door. Mind you, she lived 8 hours away from me, but she would often drive from where she lived and just show up at my door. And she always had this specific knock. I don't think she realized that she had a specific knock, but I could always tell when my mom was at the door. So we would just be quiet and wait till she left. But then she just parked on the street and wait for us. But somehow we were able to always avoid her when she would come into town, and she would stay a couple days trying to get a hold of me, and then I guess give up out of frustration and go home. And she sent me letters, tons of letters. I never read them. My husband read a few, said that they were all just lies, gaslighting, and more abusive crap, and that there wasn't anything in it that I didn't know that she hadn't already said to me a million times. And so, like, I never read any of the letters she sent me. And after a while, he even stopped reading them because it was always just the same old stuff. And she never, at least to my knowledge, she never apologized. She never admitted to ever doing anything to hurt me. She was always the perfect mother. And, like, how dare I be so ungrateful to not talk to her when she went through all that pain and agony to bring me into the world, and raised me and protected me and loved me and nurtured me, and all this absolute crap. And so I'm like, I don't know if at the last few letters she may have sent, she may have actually came to terms and said she's sorry, but I'll never know because I threw them away. um I just couldn't couldn't have anything to do with her. She even went so far as to send money. She would send checks so she would know if I was getting them, because obviously when you cash a check, you get a receipt of a cash check. Well, every time a letter would come in, and if it had money in it, I would rip up the check and throw it away. And so she never got the receipts back for the checks, and she wrote me lots of checks for quite a bit of money, and it really hurt ripping those checks up because we desperately needed that money when those checks came in. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how badly we needed that money. But I could not take her manipulation money, because I knew that once she got a receipt back that I cashed her check, she'd have a doorway to enter my life again, and I couldn't give that to her. So she ended up dying alone on her kitchen floor. She was heavily intoxicated. It looks like from the coroner that she either had a heart attack and then fell and slammed her head into her chest freezer, which gave her a huge subdermal hematoma, to which she then basically bled out on the kitchen floor. So it's hard to tell if she had the heart attack and then fell, hit her head, and then died, or if she fell, hit her head, had a heart attack, and died. Like, they couldn't be specific as to what event actually killed her. Was it the heart attack or was it the hematoma? Like, we don't know. But we do know that she laid on her floor alone, dead, for a few days before the neighbor got tired of the dog barking and noticed there was a foul smell and called the authorities, and they discovered my mother. But I know one of her greatest fears was to die alone, and she died alone. And I feel tremendous guilt for the fact that she was terrified of dying alone. She talked often about it throughout my childhood. Like, not necessarily to me, but conversations I would hear over the phone, or to other adults, or to my stepdad, or to just other people. Or sometimes she would talk to me as well. But she had a huge fear of dying alone. And so I feel guilty that she died alone, and that she did not have me in her life. Although I will say one thing, and then I'm going to wrap this up because it's been really long. Half hour. Anyway, about a week before Mother's Day, I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it said, you need to send your mother a Mother's Day card, because it will be the last one that you'll ever be able to. And I was like, I'm not going to send her a card. I've not sent her a card in over 8 years. I'm not sending her a card. That feeling kept growing and growing and growing. It would not go away until the point it was actually like screaming in my ears. Send her a card. Send her a card. So I sent her a Mother's Day card. She got it, like, I think it was the day before Mother's Day. And I believe she ended up calling my brother, and she was so happy that she had gotten a card from me, apparently. And then apparently she called, I guess, one of her friends or somebody, because they said that she had said that she had the two best kids in the world, because I guess my brother also sent her a card or something or other. I don't remember exactly. But my mother died a few days after Mother's Day. So she died knowing in her heart that her daughter still loved her, because I will always love her because she was my mother. Even though I despise her, I still love her. It's a very complicated situation. But she died knowing that her daughter loved her, and that her son did too. And I don't know, maybe she thought this was going to be a beginning of a relationship again. Maybe she had dreams that we were going to start working on coming back together or something. I don't know. I like to think that as she was dying, I mean, although the coroner said it was probably very quick, but I'd like to think that if she was, laying there dying for any significant period of time, that she, besides the pain and fear, maybe she was thinking about the card and that maybe we would have a relationship again or something happy. I don't know. I really don't know. People often ask me if I wish my mother was in hell for all she's done to me. Um, no. I don't wish hell on her, even though she literally put me through hell. But I don't wish heaven on her either. I know there's probably not an in-between, but I know she had a lot of mental health issues. I know that she was a victim of abuse herself. I know she was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and she had a lot of demons. I know that she had a lot of issues, and those issues affected who she was and how she was able to parent. And yes, she made many traumatic, tremendously awful mistakes and choices that have scarred my brother and I for life. But I still don't wish hell upon her. Although I will never wish heaven upon her, ever. She does not enjoy the peace of heaven. However, it's not up to me. It's up to God. So I don't know if she found God at the end of her life. I know that she wasn't a believer during her life. But I have no idea at the end if she had found God or anything. So I don't know. I don't know. I know I get asked a lot, do you forgive her? No, I'm working on it, but no, I haven't forgiven her. Do you want her to go to hell? No. I want her to I want her to be punished, yes, for what she has done and the damage she's inflicted. And not just me and my brother, but she was very abusive to other people. And there's so much more to talk about with her. So much more. I just don't have the time because now I'm over a half hour. Holy cow. Anyway, my mom was an enigma, and that is basically all I can say. The woman was complicated. And also, my brother and I, while we were cleaning out her house, found probably 10 other identifications with my mother. Different names, different social security numbers, all her picture. My mother had at least 10 other lives. Or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot more that I can talk about with my mom. Not just the abuse, but my mother. I could write a book alone on my mother and the horrid things that she did, besides the abuse to my brother and I. But anyway, you wanted to know about my mom. I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry it was so long. I hope I answered your questions. If you still have other questions, let me know. But I think I pretty much got everything that was important to why she was the way she was, and whatever. Anyway, I hope that you all have a great day, and thank you, RaptureReady, for the question. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask, and I will try really hard not to make my next video so long. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I get going and I can't shut up. Alright. May you all be safe, be blessed, stay well, and I hope to talk to you soon. Okay, bye.